Hey guys, it's been a minute. Haven't made a video in, I don't even remember the last time. Today I just wanted to make a little video showing a bit of my camera collection that I've gathered over the past 2 years. It's not crazy huge or anything, but it's mine. And there are some cameras in here that I really love and I've gotten to capture very cool memories with. Some of them that I just, they're bridges to get to the place that I wanted to be. But let's get started. I think the first camera I want to talk about here is my Polaroid Now Plus. I absolutely love this camera. I got this camera in the Christmas of 23 and immediately fell in love with just the capture process of taking photos with Polaroid. I even got to the point where I was putting on my tripod so much that I cracked the tripod stand. So every time I go to put the tripod mount on, I get terrified that today would be the last day with this camera. I haven't really shot a whole lot more with this camera recently, mainly because the price of Polaroid film is ridiculously expensive. Some of the cool things about this one is that you still get manual controls with it. The downside to that is that you have to use your phone in order to be able to use those manual controls, since there's no dials or anything directly on the camera itself, which leads you to make some creative long exposures and double exposures. At the same time, having to pull my phone out right before taking a shot is also kind of a pain in the butt. Would I recommend this camera? Absolutely. Let's move on now to the Vivitar 3000S. I absolutely love this camera. This was actually the first film camera that I started to shoot on. It's fully mechanical, goes up to 1/2000th of a second for a shutter, which now that I've been shooting on a lot of other cameras, most of them don't even go up that high. So I don't know, maybe one day I have to pull this back out. Downsides to this camera: there is no light meter built into this camera. There is technically, but for some reason on my model, it just doesn't work. I've tried swapping the batteries out, but it doesn't seem to be wanting to work as much. Another downside that I've noticed with this, I don't know if it's my particular lenses or something, but I can't focus to infinity on this camera. I've had lots and lots of shots pretty much get ruined simply because it can't capture after a certain distance. I'm still grateful for this camera. I've loved getting to shoot with it. It was the camera that I put my first roll through and got developed, and I'm pretty sure half the roll was underexposed. But this was just the stepping stone to the other cameras that I ended up collecting down the line, and don't regret having this one in my collection, so it's gonna probably keep staying here. Also, the shutter sound, I love the shutter sound on this one. What do I want to move on to? Let's go with this one, the Minolta Freedom Zoom Elite. Little backstory about this camera. I actually thrifted this camera, not this particular one, from a Goodwill for $5, $10 a couple years ago. I didn't put any film through it for a little while after that, but once I did, I was thoroughly impressed with the shots. These were my two cameras that I was running around with for a while. This one actually provided better shots, I feel like, simply because this had a much sharper lens, and it was just, some of the memories that I was able to capture out of it were just chef's kiss. I would definitely recommend these cameras. I think are priced around 35, 40 bucks on eBay right now. If you can find your hands on one of them, definitely pick it up. They work really well. They have a very long zoom, up to, I think, 115 millimeters. You can get some pretty good telephoto shots with it, and then also just some pretty good wide angle shots at 38 millimeters. But yeah, highly recommend this one. Pick it up even if you're just trying to get into film. While we're still in the realm of point and shoots, let me talk about the Canon AF35M2. Got a text from my mom one day, and she was just going through Goodwill and happened to catch this camera out of the corner of her eye and asked if I was interested in getting it. I've had mixed feelings with this point and shoot. The lens on this thing is really good. I've had some really good shots come out of this camera, and I love just being able to throw it in my bag. It feels better in the hand than that Minolta Freedom Zoom. Obviously, you're limited to the one focal length of 38 millimeters, but I'm kind of okay with that. I usually just shoot with prime lenses to begin with. Like a lot of older cameras and stuff, not been the most reliable. The first time I finished the roll in this camera, I went to go have it rewind, and it only rewinded, I want to say, a quarter of the way back. So then I was sitting there like, oh shit, what do I do? I actually had to take this camera into my bathroom that didn't have any windows or anything and physically yank the film out of it. I had to do that twice now. I'm not that attached to this camera, and it's not my ride or die, but this still sits on my shelf. It looks really pretty, looks really cool. I think I could probably still run a roll through it, but again, I would have to do the yanking out the film, and it's just not a good feeling. With the results that I've had and the unreliability that I've had with this camera, I probably can't recommend it. Moving on to the bigger boys, Nikon or Canon? You choose. You can't actually choose because you're watching this video. We'll go with the Nikon first. I've only shot one roll through this camera. I acquired it from a family member. I got autofocus, which I'm not used to in a film camera because most of them are mechanical or have just electronics for the light meter. But this camera was fun to shoot with. It is big though. I'm not usually a huge fan of big cameras. I think now that I've gotten used to like what my shooting style is and stuff, having a big camera just can kind of feel sluggish. In the right setting though, if I were to do a portrait shoot with this camera, I think this would be perfect. Even though this is like a kit lens, the sharpness that I was able to get on this was insane. I was thoroughly happy with everything. It has shutter and aperture priority, so it made my style of shooting super easy. I just would set my camera to f8 and have the shutter choose whatever it needed to. It also has a good system on the inside of the viewfinder to let you know if the shutter speed's gonna be lower than what you'd probably want for handheld. I've only ran one roll of black and white, what was it, HP5 through it, and I loved it. The issue that I had though, for some reason it's something with the rewind mechanisms on cameras, but I went to go rewind this camera and it actually, I thought it had finished. I opened up the door, it was not finished. I thought I lost the entire roll that I shot through it. I was hesitant to even send it to the lab to get it developed, but luckily it only affected like 2 frames. Seriously, the results that I got out of this one, amazing. If you can find one in working condition, I would say this falls in line with ones that I would recommend. Definitely if you're looking for something beginner friendly or simply just to have another camera in your kit. As long as you're okay with the very heavy design. It only takes, I say it only takes 4 AAA batteries or AA batteries, which is quite insane, but also at the same time makes it pretty easy to pick up those kinds of batteries and not hard to find. But yeah, next camera. The Canon AE1 program. This is my workhorse. I absolutely love and adore this camera. This is the camera that I take out with me all the time. I bought it from an antique store and hoped that it actually worked after spending a couple, I spent like $100 on it or so. It's light, it's pretty compact for the most part, especially for being an SLR. Overall, I have very little things to complain about with this camera. It has just worked for me in every situation that I've put it in. 90% of the shots that I get that come out of this camera are keepers in some sort of capacity. My biggest complaint with it right now, there is a squeaking issue with this camera that I know I could fix, and I probably will do it here soon, but it sounds like a little sneeze every single time you fire it off. I think it's cute, but also kind of loud at the same time. One of the benefits with this camera as well, specifically with the program design, you have aperture and shutter priority. So if I wanted to, I could f8 and forget about it. Unlike the Nikon that I just showed off a couple seconds ago, it doesn't have anything to show what shutter speed it's going to be firing at and not letting me know if it goes below like 1/30th. I tend to just kind of do all manual with this camera. The light meter works really well in it. I have no problem just being able to dial in my settings before most shots that I have. But yeah, I have very little things that I can complain about with this camera. I would highly recommend one if you can find one at a decent price. But let's move on to the next camera. I say the next camera, but I do think this one's gonna be the last one that I wanna show off today. But this is my Canon Model 2F. Nice little rangefinder camera. It was from the 1950s, and I'm just astonished that it's still even alive and working today. They don't make them like they used to, you know? This camera has been a roller coaster for me. I've loved this camera and I've also hated this camera. I've wanted to get into rangefinders for a while now, and I think I got trigger happy with this one. I saw it at that same antique store that I got the AE1 at, and I had to have it, you know? It looks so cool to begin with. There's quite a few issues that I have with this camera. The main one I have to say is the viewfinder. The viewfinder absolutely sucks with this camera. Tiny little window there. It is so unbelievably small that as someone who wears glasses, like I can put it up to my eye and still not see the full frame. I have to take my glasses off in order to see the full frame, and it has to be like touching my face. I'm about to get like a viewfinder window to throw on top, and hopefully that can help just because it'll make it a little bit brighter. That's been my biggest gripe with this camera. The lens on it that I have is just the Canon 50mm LTM lens, and I think it has great sharpness. I've put it on my like digital cameras as well, just to like mess around with, and the shots that come out of that are pretty good too. I think for me, down the line, I probably want to move over to a different Canon rangefinder. But yeah, would I recommend this camera? Probably not. Oh, Fig wanted to be in the video. I can recommend the Canon P. I know a couple people who've shot with those camera systems and have really enjoyed it. So definitely go that direction instead of this one. But I think this one's gonna still stay in my collection for the end of time. It's just so cool. I think that's just about it with all the cameras that I would want to show off. If you're still here, thank you. This is just me trying to like put myself out there and kick my trash can that's down below here. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. I hope to see you in the next one.